Didn't want to hear that, but man, there's a sickness going around the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles seem to be not doing too well in the health department going forward. We have a lot to discuss regarding some of the, I know the Super Bowl is really the big thing right now, and obviously some other news and other things are going on where possible trades could happen later on, and other things down the stretch of the offseason. But you don't want this to be a distraction within what the Eagles are trying to do. We have news on Howie Roseman, his thoughts on why he hasn't re-signed any of these re-signs that we kind of been waiting for going forward. And I kind of want to get into that. So let's get straight into it all.
A killer buried, but not dead.
Darren, we better turn around. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what is going on, guys? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Today's video is sponsored by BetUS. Go check them out if you guys have not, okay? Now, the first thing I kind of want to go over here, okay? We're waiting a few more days. Super Bowl, ready to go, locked in, ready. And, there's always, a little bit of music behind the scenes. There's always a little bit of little clips and little things that we could take and say, what are the Eagles doing here? Howie Roseman, obviously, especially being at media night, is going to be asked a lot of questions, okay? Was asked a lot of questions about Myles Garrett because of the rumors and everything else that's really going on behind re-signs. What are you going to do in this offseason? Howie Roseman was kind of questioned about why he hasn't really re-signed anybody. And we talked about this, guys. Like, how many times have we said, Zach Bond should have been signed yesterday, like nonstop. After every game he played, we're like, you better sign him now, as you wait and you wait and you wait. Well, Howie had some things to say about this kind of going forward, and kind of want to read some of the quotes here. He said, quote unquote, once you start doing that, it's almost like, are you picking favorites, Roseman said. And the other guys start saying, what about me? And they start playing for themselves as opposed to the team. Quote unquote, now we've seen that probably cost you money in the long run as you're doing it. But when you have an opportunity to compete for a championship, it's worth that sacrifice, I think. Quote unquote, I'll do anything for a championship, Roseman said. So if that's the trade-off and maybe we lose a player, I won't like that, but I'll take it, okay? So pretty much like re-signing players could be one of the biggest distractions in season, which I see that, you know what I mean? Because if one person gets re-signed, other players are going to wonder why, hey, I didn't get re-signed. Did you get re-signed? I want to get re-signed today. Like, why are, and then there's, you're being remorseful, and then you're not focused on the season. And if Howie Roseman has to wait a little bit longer, which is winning a Super Bowl, to wait some days afterwards to re-sign somebody, then, obviously he'll take that chance. Roseman was disgusted from the 23 season, how that season ended, and I think the Eagles have done a pretty good job, especially Howie Roseman, really a big, tall order for him to really get this coaching staff right and get good coaching behind what he could put together as a really good roster going forward, okay? So I completely get, we don't really as fans think about it in this regard when it comes to, why don't they just resign him? Why don't they just resign him? And sometimes you do get to resign guys. If you're not having a great season, if the team is doing horrible, then sure, it's probably much easier to get into negotiations already knowing that you're going to be out of the playoffs and the record, you're not going to be able to make it in the playoffs, and it's kind of a failed year at this point. But with the Eagles, Howie Roseman didn't want to take his chance on players just getting, making them fat cats pretty much and satisfied. And then God forbid you pay somebody and they just don't look right during the season, or, like players just start to trend down a little bit. And we've seen that from players, man. Sometimes you have to let players go after a Super Bowl. Some guys feel satisfied. I have no issue letting go of Josh Sweat and maybe some of the other guys that we have here, just because, like, you can't, you never can keep everybody. But at the end of the day, like, these guys need to go to other teams and kind of figure out their own thing. And the Eagles need fresh meat coming into the building, okay? And acquiring guys that are hungry for a championship. like I said, some guys are always satisfied after that first ring or whatnot, and that's what you're going to get from certain players. So you don't want distractions. You want these guys to stay hungry for that money, for that re-sign, that big contract that they could get, or a contract in general. So I completely agree why Howie Roseman didn't do what he did in the regular season to the playoffs and re-signing Zach Bond and Mekhi Becton and, let's all sign Isaiah Rodgers. And, I get all that 100% because everyone's going to be turning their heads like, dude, I want my deal. You got your deal. I want my deal, so I thought that was a really cool statement by Howie Roseman. And, hey, you never think of it that way. I never really thought that deep about it, like how it really affects a team when you make these re-signs really early. But at least like on Howie's mind, it will happen and, give it time. Okay. Now, I thought this was interesting too because, Myles Garrett shows up to the Super Bowl. Okay. He shows up to media availability and he's at every table, every desk. It was so funny seeing Ike Reese and some of the guys, like when Myles Garrett was walking by at the 94 WIP table, like, yo, come to Philadelphia. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like just to kind of troll a little bit, for him to come to Philly. But Myles Garrett was making his rounds. He's talked about being with the Commanders because they need a pass rusher badly, and look what they did this year. He's talked about playing with the Cowboys and Micah Parsons, and when they talked about being with the Philadelphia Eagles, his eyes kind of lit up, and he was like, "That would be a hell of a destination." You know what I mean? It was funny because someone asked, Howie Roseman about, what do you think about a player like Myles Garrett? Like, and he's like, I can't talk about him. He's under contract. And he started laughing. He's like, and Howie Roseman's like, nice try though. So, it doesn't shock me that Howie Roseman has, that I don't doubt the phone call will be made. Okay. What it's going to cost. It just seemed like Myles Garrett he was a little bit more excited when talking about the Eagles enjoying this defensive line going forward. And just imagine putting him next to Jalen Carter and really having these offensive lines really pick their poison, especially now Nolan Smith is going to have more pressure on him next year to have a double-digit sack season next season. And obviously with, getting more depth behind that, when you get through the, free agency and obviously draft prospects and all of that, this just makes it more exciting at the end of the day. So, we'll see what happens, but he's not a free agent, but he's kind of like, hey, the Browns are going to do right by him to go to a place, they respect Myles Garrett a lot to put him in a place where he wants to go. He'll have more success, and that's really what matters. Could the Eagles be that landing spot? And we've talked about obviously, with that first round pick that they had, that won't be an early one. Will you get an impact player at a specific position they want? Can you actually get out of a trade? Can you actually get a Myles Garrett trade and not give up a first round pick? Do you have to do something? You know what I mean? So we'll figure out what happens, but he seemed really excited about that. And it wouldn't shock me that the phone call would be made. The phone call is always made every offseason. And Howie Roseman does not stop. Okay. Especially if they win the Super Bowl on Sunday, forget about it. This will just make him want to even do this even more, in my opinion, going forward. You know what I mean? Adding Myles Garrett, adding somebody from the draft if they can, and a nice rotational piece that could be a big piece later on. Be a lot of different combination moves they could do with this defensive line. But in my eyes, they're one move away. I mean, they're literally, besides a couple depth pieces, a couple depth pieces they'll have this season, they're one move away. They're one move away on that defensive line. And this is the move. This is definitely the move. You know what I mean? So I don't mind getting, if the Eagles had pick 15, pick 18, I wouldn't care as much because realistically, I think if you trade for Myles Garrett, I think it will be much cheaper than trading up from 32 to fucking 10. I mean, you're just, I don't think the Eagles can survive that unless they make like 3 trades or they move up slowly before the draft. And you know what I mean? So we'll see how that goes, but it's going to cost a lot, from 32 to move up like boom. And no team is going to let the Eagles move up that easily. Okay. Not going to happen. So we'll find out what happens later on, but definitely interesting to see what was going on there. Now we obviously had news on Jalen Carter and the team in general, because it seems like there's something going around. Okay, there was a reporter too that was trying to interview Nolan Smith, and it looks like Nolan Smith was like, you don't want to know what I have. You don't want what I have right now. So there's some I don't know if there's a stomach flu going on, but there is something traveling around the team, no doubt. Okay, Jalen Carter had a light practice. He'll be fine. Everybody will be back. But they definitely caught something, and the players are all getting it now. So, you don't want to think of it in a bad fashion, but, these things just happen sometimes. Eagles are sick. Kansas City Chiefs aren't sick, but you got to think about these things. But that's really it. They'll be ready to go and ready. But other than that, guys, let me know what you guys think about Howie Roseman and Resigns and his philosophy of not signing guys too early when you're having a season like you're having, and obviously, what this team is going to look like by Sunday and how you feel about it. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, cover the Eagles every single day, and make sure you like the video because it helps the channel tremendously. And we're one day closer to Super Bowl 59 and getting that second ring, baby. All right, you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you guys on the next one. Shakes what up, follow slide. Peace out, guys. Hey.